Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Tougie's Take podcast. I am joined here this time out by Sin and only Sin. Endo is a busy boy on this Monday, so you'll be hanging out with the two of us here for the next however long, because Sin and the NHL, the news doesn't stop, and we have a lot to talk about just from the weekend. But how you doing? How you feeling? And are you ready to talk some hockey? We do have to talk about some other not so fun stuff to talk about, but we'll get into some actual hockey on this episode, which will be nice.
A lot of good, bad, and ugly. Good can be perspective on which team you are part of, some extensions, some movement from AHL to NHL. Speaking of AHL, an AHL Sharks team beat an NHL Winnipeg Jets team, which is fantastic. I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit. And just a lot of stuff happened in a very short amount of time.
Absolutely. So again, as always, we will remind you right off the top, this podcast is brought to you by our friends at Manscaped. Of course, make sure to use code Tougie at checkout for 20% off your order. Free worldwide shipping, of course. Manscaped, the place to be for any and all of your grooming needs. Is it the top of your head that you're worried about? The nose, the ears, the beard, something a bit further south? They got everything that you need. So again, make sure to check out manscaped.com. With that, we are going to jump right over the viewer questions idea. We'll hopefully get back to that this Thursday because there is a lot to talk about and we want to make sure that we give everything its proper amount of time. And we'll start things off with a couple of warm-up kind of topics before getting into some of that more serious stuff and then talking about the games that happened this weekend. So, Sin, let's kick things off in talking about one of the more surprising stories of the weekend, and that is that the Toronto Maple Leafs have indeed re-signed Morgan Rielly, because as it turns out, you know, as much as I sit here and say, oh, this isn't going to happen, and then it immediately happens, someone like Steve Dangle also has that power to say Morgan Rielly is definitely the one piece that gets traded if the Leafs make a trade. And LOL, no, that's not going to happen. He has a brand new extension that starts next year when he turns 28 years old. It'll be an 8-year deal, $7.5 million per, with a full no movement clause for the 8 years. And for the bit of levity, at PHT Evans said this on Twitter, quote, "By taking a discount to stay in Toronto, Morgan Rielly has shown he doesn't care about money or winning. It's a rare combination in an athlete." And I respect it.
That was my favorite tweet of the week, by the way. I laughed a good amount at that.
Absolutely incredible. I am also shocked because the consensus did seem to be that Morgan Rielly was likely on the way out, but you're talking about, I believe, the longest tenured member of that team at this stage. And in terms of being a number one defenseman, is he actually a number one defenseman? He gets used like one, and I think that's where the argument kind of kicks in, because the not-so elephant in the room, as everyone kind of knows, Morgan Rielly as an offensive, play-driving number one defenseman, he fits the bill. It's the defensive side of things with his game that you really worry about. But I feel like paying him $7.5 million kind of takes that pressure off a little bit. I mean, I guess it depends on who you are, right? Like the idea of, oh, our number one defenseman has to be this incredible play driver on both sides of the ice. Essentially, what people view Victor Hedman as, even if like his defensive metrics have kind of dropped a little bit. How would you feel as a Leafs fan? Granted, you are a fan of a team that is known for signing some interesting contracts for those who are viewed as top-tier defensemen. How do you feel about the Morgan Rielly extension?
It's not bad. The price tag's fair. At least he's 28 when he's starting and not 30. So that they got that going for him. But I feel like it is going to turn into, by about year 5 or 4, it's going to turn into something that it's not going to be great. If you look at Morgan Rielly's trajectory, especially on the analytics side of things, he's already in a downtrend, which at age 28 is not what you want to see. Again, maybe hard to kind of say if it's a reflection on him or some of his teammates and stuff like that. But I generally trust a lot of the analytics community in this kind of stuff when rating him. But then again, $7.5 million is not too bad when you're using someone as that number one. That being said, again, I don't know. I'm kind of conflicted on it because it's not a bad deal, but it's also that was like your one big chip to like maybe move and try to free up some space. They have like no money to sign a bottom six.
So at this point, you have Austin Matthews signed for 2 more years after this one at $11.6 million. John Tavares has 3 years at the end of this one with a no movement clause factored in. He's making $11 million a season against the cap. And then Marner also has 3 years left at the end of this deal, or at the end of this year, worth $10.9 million. And then William Nylander still has 2 years left after this at basically $7 million. In terms of the bargaining pieces, the trade pieces that you have to shake things up, I mean, it's not impossible to move a William Nylander who has 2 years left at the end of this deal. It's certainly the most movable deal, but
he's also their best player right now.
Yeah, that's the problem, right? It continues that trend, and I don't think it helps the kind of the general feeling around the team that you see from a lot of people in that, well, if this does go poorly, what changes? You re-sign Sheldon Keefe, but he probably has to be the first one to go. But maybe we can trade Morgan Rielly. No, he just re-signed. Well, maybe William Nylander. Shit, he's our best player so far this year. Like, the team is essentially fully backed into the corner of this has to work.
Yeah.
And whether or not it does is still, I mean, the jury's still out.
Honestly, this is, it kind of, to kind of make a kind of a parallel between this and a video game. This is like me when I draft a goddamn elite ass team that keeps getting knocked out in the first round, but I keep signing everyone to these deals because I'm like, it has to work. I'm getting fucking cheesed, man. The simulation is bullshit. But, again, maybe at some point, something isn't quite working. The overalls don't matter. The chemistry doesn't matter. What's going wrong? So I kind of feel like the Leafs are sort of doing that, where they're like, we can and we will. Oh, we have all these keys. Oh, maybe Morgan Rielly is the guy to go. No, they just re-signed him. Well, we can always trade Nylander. Oh, shit. Actually, this year he's the best player for us, and he's on a really team-friendly deal, which we kind of need. Yeah, they've kind of sort of pigeonholed themselves into this core, which was good a couple years ago. But now the playoff failings, everyone's questioning it, and the fans, as they do, are sort of beginning to turn on things. So, honestly, maybe some of it's good. I feel like sometimes the fans and the media run the Toronto franchise a little too much. But who knows? I don't know. I don't know how it's going to work out for the Leafs, but I guess we'll see, because this is their team.
Now we'll talk about another Canadian team here really quickly too, and I think this might have been the thing you were looking forward to the most in this particular show. The word came down today after some rumors over the weekend. Cole Caulfield has been sent down to the Laval Rockets after 10 games with the Habs to kick off this season, where he has just 1 assist. The argument, chicken or egg, is it he's struggling, or is it the bad team that he's playing on? Is it both? Who's to say? But I don't really see too many people disagreeing with the idea of him being sent down to the AHL, with the exception of those who were so convinced that he was going to win the Calder this season. I mean, I was in that boat. I never expected this to be as slow of a start as it happened to be for Cole Caulfield. So, and for the Habs in that conversation as well, in terms of just how bad of a start to the season it's been for them. So, Sin, your take on Cole Caulfield being sent down, because I know you've been waiting.
Yeah, a little bit vindicated. Take that, YouTube comment section. Yeah, no, I got a lot of heat, of course, for my opinion that I don't think he's guaranteed elite player. I don't think he's a guaranteed 40 goal scorer. He's got a lot to prove. I'm sorry. Size still does play some factor, especially when it comes to goal scorers. If you look at some of the guys who get some 30 goals, sometimes you gotta get into those dirty areas. It's hard with a 5'7" frame to go up against some of the big body defensemen and get into those areas. Shots from the perimeter are all well and good. He's had a lot of those. He's hit, I think he had 2 posts in the first game where they played the Sharks. Like, he has a shot from back there, but if you're always working on the perimeter, you're not as guaranteed to get some of those goals. And sometimes it can be hard to find time and space in the middle of the ice. That's where the size does come in. Do I think he's good enough to kind of find ways to score around that? Yes. But he hasn't proven it yet on the NHL level enough. Now, he had a great playoff run. Then again, all the Habs had a great playoff run. They sort of caught lightning in the bottle right here. So, yeah, I think he's a bit shaken right now. I think it's a little bit of confidence now, and I think him playing in the AHL is going to benefit him. Playoff games don't count, right? So if he sits out and is in the AHL for the rest of the year, he'd still be a rookie next year. So is the Habs dream alive? All right, well, we'll be hearing the Calder chants next season, I'm sure, when he is another true rookie. How old is he now? Is he 20 or 21?
I can look that up really quickly. I'm pretty sure that he is 20. Yes, he turns 21 on January 2nd.
Okay. So still relatively early in his development, but for a guy who was hailed as going to be this elite goal scorer, for him not to have at least one in those 10 games, no matter what bad team he's on, is a bit troubling if you're the Habs, and his development trajectory might not be as high as you'd want. And if you're Vancouver,
we'll be talking about, we can talk about this now. It was going to be towards the bottom half, right? But we can talk about the Calder, the early Calder race right now. Why not? Like you said, for him to not at least have a goal is concerning, right? Like, you look at who's up there, and there are two guys that are tied with 4 goals each amongst rookies for the lead in that category. It's Tanner Jeannot, who's a little bit older for the Nashville Predators. I think he's 23, if I'm not mistaken. But then there's Lucas Raymond in Detroit, who not only is tied for the lead in goals with 4, but he is also leading the way amongst all rookies in points with 9.
And they're the same age,
and I think Lucas Raymond's a year younger,
wow.
if I'm not mistaken. I think Cole Caulfield is 20 years old, and that Lucas Raymond is 19. And indeed, Raymond will turn 20 in March. Now, some people might try to say the argument of like, oh, well, Lucas Raymond played in Sweden with men, but it's like, well, Cole Caulfield played at the University of Wisconsin.
Yeah.
I don't know why it's struggling with, again, older people involved. Like, my God, NCAA wise, you can sit there and play against 23, 24-year-olds. So it's not as if, there's a difference between the leagues, but in terms of like, the competitive edge between the two leagues, it's not even really there either. But when it comes to Caulfield, it's got to be frustrating, right? Because Montreal, not a very good team. The Detroit Red Wings, not a very good team either, but they're making it work this year. I don't think anybody was heading into this season saying, Montreal, compared to Detroit, though, the way Detroit plays, like, we wouldn't have been saying that three weeks ago or so. But it's like, now you look at how hard the Red Wings play. You look at the fact that amongst rookies, they have the 2 leading point getters, with Lucas Raymond on 9 points, and Moritz Seider has 8, because of course he does. It's ridiculous. The next highest in terms of points, by the way, you have a bunch of guys tied at 5. Tanner Jeannot, as mentioned, Michael Bunting, Jonathan Dahlen on the Sharks, Drew O'Connor on Pittsburgh, Dawson Mercer, Zegras, Lindell, Byram. Like, Detroit's rookies are getting it done. That team plays really hard, and obviously just something hasn't worked in Montreal so far that's really done Cole Caulfield no favors.
Yeah, and for the Red Wings, they're finally sort of on the upward trajectory. They've been in the pits for like how long? So, it's finally starting to work for them. But again, no one could have predicted Montreal being this bad, I guess. But just so people don't think I'm playing favorites here. At the same vein, I want William Eklund to be sent back to Sweden, because for me, if you're going to play, someone like that, in the NHL level, they're going to have to be productive, night in, night out. And same with Cole Caulfield. He hasn't been. It's probably better to send him to somewhere where they're going to have that success, build the confidence, develop their game further. So, I think they're both kind of similar in that regard, not really being the game changers that you need them to be. It really serves no purpose to play them, down in the lineup. Give him that time to develop. It's not that Cole Caulfield's a bust or anything like that. Just, again, don't make the mistake of Toronto and try to rush some of these guys along or overhype some of these guys, because that could really be bad for the development. Again, they hear all the stuff. They read all the stuff. Yeah.
I do want to mention as well in terms of that rookie race, it's not just forwards and defenders to pay attention to. In goal, there are a couple of guys that are doing quite well. Spencer Knight, as you would have expected, a 2-0-1 record with a .929 save percentage, and that is because of Sergei Bobrovsky, who we'll talk about in a little bit. Philip Gustafson in Ottawa has a 2-1-0 record with a .932. Again, just 3 games. And then shout out to Vejmelka on the Phoenix Coyotes, the Arizona Coyotes. We were talking about the great state of Arizona before recording today. He has an 0-5-1 record, but he has a .920 save percentage.
That's absolutely insane. Like, that's ridiculous.
Now, again, that's always my argument, though, because you kind of mentioned the idea of, like, okay, within, your community, EA, NHL, and stuff like that. For me as well, people know that I'm pretty heavy into the roster editing type of things and wanting to make things, in my opinion, more realistic than what EA does. Vejmelka so far is kind of that argument for, hey, bad team, player can still do well. Because Carter Hutton, as we talked about not all that long ago, it's just abysmal. Yet you have this guy with no NHL experience putting up a .920 through 6, if not 7 appearances so far. So it's just one of those crazy things where, again, bad numbers doesn't necessarily just mean, oh, it's a bad team in front of them. Like, no, you can still be a fairly productive player. So I'm very intrigued by the rookie race, and it's even more interesting now, in my opinion, now that we've seen Cole Caulfield essentially get dropped out of the, out of contention very early on into the season. Next little talking point before we get to some of the more interesting stuff, as we'll call it. Ryan Getzlaf is now the franchise leader in points for the Anaheim Ducks, passing Teemu Selanne. He has 989 points in a fantastic 1,111 games, straight ones at the time of recording. Since the Ducks retiring his number is a given, but Ryan Getzlaf, I think he's 36, if not 37. There's a Hall of Fame argument. I mean, he's a Cup champion. He's a 2-time Olympic gold medal winner. I'm very intrigued to see how Ryan Getzlaf is remembered outside of Anaheim, where obviously in Anaheim he is one of the best players in that organization's history.
I mean, yeah, he's absolutely revered. And honestly, I could say as a rival fan, absolutely respected by everyone. Hall of Fame argument, I can't say for certainty first ballot. Even though he's got the cup and stuff like that, it's just his drop off over the last few years has been massive. It does coincide a bit with the team. He might have a bit of a pick me up this season, which would be great for the tail end of his career as Anaheim starts to maybe get better again. He sticks around, starts maybe doing the jumbo thing, signing 1-year deals over and over again with Anaheim to help him, try to figure something out. If he continues that trajectory, I can see him being a first ballot. But I think he makes Hall of Fame. I don't know if it's first ballot. I know he's got the cup and stuff like that. It's just ever since his prime sort of started to grind to a halt, his numbers have just really fallen off a cliff. And, kind of a few years before some of those Hall of Famers numbers begin to fall off that cliff. So I don't know. But I mean, again, the franchise leader in points, all those other things do kind of add up. I just as an objective standpoint, him being in that small market too, like what kind of respect does he get outside of, the Pacific Division? I just don't know if the league will give that thing to him, even though he probably does deserve it.
I think it'll be an interesting exercise in how much leadership qualities and loyalty to a team matters when it comes to those who ultimately do vote on who makes it into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
We've had that discussion on the show plenty of times in terms of, boy, it's really weird. It's like a constantly evolving situation with how players seemingly make it into the Hall of Fame, who does and who doesn't. At the end of the day, though, a great accomplishment for Ryan Getzlaf. We'll get into the more interesting stuff here, and by interesting, I mean we are going to be covering more of the stuff surrounding the Kyle Beach story, the press conference involving Gary Bettman and Bill Daly, but we're going to kick things off here with kind of the aftermath of the idea of those who were involved in that Chicago Blackhawks team meeting in May of 2010 and what's happened to them. during the last show, we talked about, of course, obviously Stan Bowman's gone, McIsaac's gone. The breaking news was that Joel Quenneville was out. And we were left with the one question of what about Kevin Cheveldayoff, of course, the current GM of the Winnipeg Jets. And this is kind of what came up. As the Jenner and Block report, subsequent review by the league this week, and today's interview with Cheveldayoff make clear, Cheveldayoff's participation in that meeting involving senior leaders from the Blackhawks management team was extremely limited in scope and substance. In fact, in the course of the investigation, most of the participants in that meeting did not initially recall Cheveldayoff was even there. There was a follow-up tweet from Frank Saravalli who said this. Bettman says the only person who identified Cheveldayoff was in the room for that meeting was Kevin Cheveldayoff himself. That is apparently how unimportant he was at the time. He is the only person interviewed that even recalled him being in that meeting. Now, you know, I understand it is very tough, right? Because during that show, I'm like, get rid of this guy too. Like, just go.
Yeah.
Because it felt as if we had all the details. Because how could there possibly be more? They covered so much, and it was so difficult last Thursday to cover everything that was out there, because how the hell can you? There's so much to begin with. But we did kind of learn that, hey, it feels shady, but at the end of the day, it is kind of true that, you know, Cheveldayoff was really just kind of a passenger. And it seems like, you know, the Cheveldayoff defense can essentially be this. Number one, I'm apparently the only one that recalls me being in that meeting. Two, as a lesser member of that unit, after seeing Aldrich resign, he would have just probably presumed, oh, okay, they took care of it. Yeah. And was he really in a position as well to challenge those that were above him? There is, you know, there's enough there to maybe not completely exonerate Cheveldayoff, but, you know, to at least make it understandable as to why he is still with the Winnipeg Jets. Even if, again, like I said, it just, obviously, it's a result of the entire situation.
Yeah.
Around, you know, everything about it. Anyone who was seemingly involved with it, you're just like, I don't want to see their name, their face, get rid of them. Even if we find out, you know, of course, that like Cheveldayoff really wasn't all that involved in the process.
Yeah, the only thing that kind of bugs me is the whole thing of, you know, because he wasn't one of those senior members, he felt he wasn't in a position to sort of question it further. I think for something of that magnitude, you should want to push, but I mean, again, that just kind of goes back to the whole thing of, you know, don't rock the boat, which we already went over through great lengths. But yeah, most of the stuff in here, hard to kind of say that he would be directly or indirectly responsible, you know, if he believes action was taken. Yeah, kind of water under the bridge. Me personally, I'd be like, well, fucking make sure. I'd want specifics, but yeah, just kind of goes back in that whole thing of, yeah, just don't question it any further and move on.
Yeah, and I mean, I can see the debate too, right? Of, oh, he got called into a meeting and was just kind of a fly on the wall to the point where people don't even remember him being there. And then, oh, the news came out that Aldrich is gone. Cool, something must have happened. Like, I've been in situations, you know, at a job where I've gotten called into a meeting and it's like, why the hell am I even here? Yeah. Like this doesn't really even pertain to me. I think most people that have been, you know, in the workplace can kind of relate to that. And it seems like that was what happened with Chevy in particular, or if that's the defense, it at least kind of checks out.
Yeah.
That said, we move on to the press conference today.
Oh, yeah.
And we'll start off with the information pertaining to one Gary Bettman, and then we'll talk about Bill Daly. This comes from Greg Wyshynski. NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman on the $2 million fine handed to the Blackhawks. Quote, people have debated the amount of the fine, but it was substantial by any measure. It sends a message to all clubs about how I view their organization responsibilities.
I mean, yeah, it sends a message, just not the one he thinks is being sent. Like $2 million, yeah, is a substantial, not by any measure. It's not a substantial amount by any measure. It's it's a substantial amount to like the ordinary person. When someone who says, "Oh, $2 million, that's a lot," but from a percentage standpoint on the organization, and again, the other points that we had brought up in the last podcast, it's so minuscule that it's honestly laughable. And he's continuing to try to say that, like, oh yeah, where's that Obama meme of like putting a medal on himself? And that's what I feel like Gary Bettman's been doing this entire time, including putting himself in the Hall of Fame, for God's sakes.
So the Chicago Blackhawks, now again, this isn't the most fair way to look at this, but hey, in simple terms, Chicago on the Forbes 2020 list of most valuable NHL teams. Sin, do you know where they finished on that list?
Oh, probably at least top 3.
They finished 4th.
So close.
Ahead of them are the Rangers at a $1.65 billion valuation. The Leafs at $1.5 billion in Montreal at $1.34 billion. Yeah. The Hawks are worth over $1 billion as an organization. Yeah. Now, again, that does not mean that the money there, again, it doesn't exactly translate out that way. But again, a $2 million fine, as we've all mentioned, and we'll mention here again. Here, I'll read ahead. This comes from Mike Stevens. Bettman says the NHL does not have a sexual misconduct policy that specifies the consequences like in other leagues because the NHL handles them on a case-by-case basis. And on top of that, Rick Westhead mentioned, he pointed out to Gary Bettman that while the Hawks were fined $2 million for an abuse cover-up, Arizona lost draft picks over improperly working out a prospect, and that New Jersey was fined $3 million for salary cap violations, to which Bettman said different context and different facts. So he was not, he as in Bettman, the NHL, they were not tied to say, oh, well, $2 million is the most that we can do. In this specific situation, and they were allowed to really hand out whatever punishment they deemed fit.
Yeah.
And they deemed this fine as, again, what was the word here? Substantial by any measure, even though when you compare it to illegally or improperly hosting a prospect workouts, or New Jersey and the salary cap violation with Kovalchuk, I mean, the punishment is lesser than both of those, let's be honest.
And that's the bizarre thing to me. Again, and I feel like he thinks this sort of makes it better that, oh, we handle this on a case-by-case basis. There's no real, precedent set. That honestly makes it worse, that you looked at this, without any sort of, expectation or responsibility to set a certain amount, fine them a certain amount, and you decided $2 million was sufficient. That makes it worse in my mind. Like they're still not getting just the weight of this issue and how just absolutely massive it is. Like that's, and that's how some laws were violated. Not just, you didn't just hurt the league's feelings. Laws were violated. It still blows me away. Man, it's insane.
A reminder as well, the Arizona Coyotes fired the GM responsible for the improper workouts. They pretty much fully cooperated with the follow-up investigation, and they still lost that first and second round pick. The Blackhawks essentially covered up their wrongdoings for a decade. They publicly denied knowledge of this past spring and are, of course, still denying responsibility in court, which isn't surprising. I mean, again, as shady as it looks in the court of public opinion, of course, the Blackhawks are going to go through the legal system and do what they got to do. I don't necessarily hold that against them because what else are they going to do? And the Hawks also let the responsible parties resign so they could collect nice severance packages, of course. I mean, so not only did really, like, a team like the Coyotes, like, let's be honest, what's more detrimental to an NHL team? Losing $2 million or losing a first and second round pick when you're a non-playoff team?
Yeah, losing those picks, just 100%.
The Coyotes were essentially punished more for a prospect workout than the Chicago Blackhawks were for this.
Yep.
It's insane. And again, the Coyotes cooperated at that time. It's just... And then you had Elliot Friedman responding or tweeting this out as well. Why did Quenneville coach last Wednesday? Bettman essentially responded, wanted to make sure that no one, including Quenneville, could say that I had prejudged them. Bettman recognizes there is a disagreement on this. Now, my argument is, are you really prejudging Quenneville at that stage? I think you would have been prejudging him in July, before this report had come out. This was in the aftermath of the report. You're not prejudging him. You would be judging him based on the findings of this report.
Yep.
Now, whether it's on Bettman in the NHL to say, hey, you're sitting this one out until we come to a decision, or it's on the Florida Panthers, regardless, how the hell did this happen? It's still, and again, it's not a matter of like, oh, well, the Panthers beat the Bruins and I'm salty. Like, who gives a shit? It's a hockey game. We're talking about serious shit like this. Who gives a shit? It's a hockey game. It's still such a black eye for the league right now still to realize that, yeah, Coach Quenneville got to coach his final game and then had the opportunity to resign, of course. And then, of course, the people will say like, oh, well, it's because of legal stuff. And eventually, you gotta figure out, well, what's worth it, the legalities of the situation or the optics of the situation? Because Lord knows the NHL, Gary Bettman, and the Florida Panthers all come off looking extremely poorly for how that situation played out. So,
yeah, kind of hit the nail on the head right there. They just keep digging themselves deeper holes, and I'm almost sort of becoming numb to the entire situation just because it's so overwhelming. Like.
Hold on. Let's see if you feel numb now or if you feel numb after this last part about Gary Bettman. You ready for this, buddy?
Oh, yeah.
This comes from Katie Strang. Gary Bettman asked if he'd pledged to make counseling available to the Michigan teenager who was sexually assaulted by Aldrich in 2013. Bettman said, quote, he'd need to know more about the situation. Aldrich was, of course, again, convicted of criminal sexual misconduct in that case. He needs to know more about the situation, Sin.
All you need to know about this situation is that an employee of the Chicago Blackhawks, who are in the NHL, a part of the NHL, you're essentially an extension of yourself, was allowed to sexually abuse someone within your organization who, again, didn't do enough about it, covered it up, let him walk away and still get a job in hockey as a fucking sexual predator and then raped a 16-year-old child. What else do you need to know? That seems pretty straightforward. Yeah, that's such a bullshit thing, man.
Dude, this was the biggest layup.
Yeah.
Like, my God. Like, I forget the player, but the gif of the Lakers player shooting the three, and he turns around with his arms up like he sunk it, and it goes out. That's Gary Bettman on this. He's like, I nailed it. This was the easiest layup possible.
Yeah.
And, like, literally, what does... I can't put myself in his shoes, right? Because I'm not a lawyer. Gary Bettman's been a lawyer for a very, very long time. The problem here is it's almost as if Gary Bettman gets too wrapped up in the lawyer speak sometimes, where instead it's like, I just don't, like, I'd love to know. Somebody let me know. What would have been lost? Would it be viewed as the NHL taking blame and saying that they're at fault for offering, counseling to this kid? Like, from the outside perspective, it's the easiest thing in the world to say, yes, we will support this guy. We will support everybody who is affected by this. It's the very least we can do. But what is it that led Gary Bettman to say that, oh, we need to know more? Like, what is it within the realm of legalities that would make it, you presume that he views it as, well, it would be damning if I said, well, help. Yeah. Like, again, where is the line between, well, legally we have to protect ourselves versus what is, again, just a layup in the court of public opinion?
Yeah, it's essentially by availing these services, you're essentially admitting some form of guilt, which they want to avoid. However, they really can't, and they should be guilty. And I hate that. Like, there's such a chasm between law and morality, and I feel like the basis of laws originally was to sort of coincide in some ways with some form of morality. And there's just such a gaping chasm, especially with these people in power. They come off as near sociopathic, the way they're just able to separate like the empathy for other human beings and their well-being just for these like you said, like these optics or these complete legal things. Like, we can't admit guilt. Like, oh, it'll, ruin us or whatever. And like, it's just, yeah. It's just gross.
Now,
that sort of like disconnect.
Yes. So we still have other stuff to talk about in this conversation. Unfortunately, we'll move on to talking specifically about some of the quotes from Bill Daly, who, and this comes from Katie Strang, NHL, via Bill Daly, said the league did not take action in December when given a heads up by Chicago's general counsel about a potential impending civil litigation. Why did they not take action back in the previous December, of course, now 11 months ago? Said general counsel of the Chicago Blackhawks said that there was no merit to the claims. And no, it's fine. Chicago's like, hey, this is fine. Nothing's going to come of this, which, oof. And that claim to me really makes me question some of those involved who said, we didn't really know until recently. So what's up with this comment from old general counsel? From Greg Wyshynski. NHL Deputy Commissioner Bill Daly says investigation into former Calgary coach Bill Peters is completed. The investigation has been completed. We've been in touch with Akeem Alou and team representatives about next steps, if there are any. On Twitter, and I'm sorry if I mispronounced the name, I think it's Ben Masalis. Quote, "This is news to me and not true. I am Akeem's rep, and the NHL has not been in touch with us for over a year," which coincides with what Alou said on Twitter within the past couple weeks. Also, investigation was into broader issues of racism Akeem experienced in his entire career in the NHL and was not limited to Bill Peters. Witnesses we told them about haven't been contacted. So not only, of course, do you have the shady shit surrounding this Blackhawks deal, you also have the shady shit regarding Akeem Alou, who, again, a few weeks ago said, I haven't been contacted. And again, they are reiterating, we have not been contacted here. And I think this is another issue that people have with Kevin Cheveldayoff, because not only was he, present for that Kyle Beach meeting, he was in charge of the Rockford Ice Hogs when that Bill Peters Akeem Alou incident took place. And of course, he didn't do anything there either. So that's another issue that people really have with Kevin Cheveldayoff. Well,
I'm sure the NHL is just waiting for Black History Month to do something so they can, peacock themselves and say, hey, look what we do. Look, we're all about equality for this month. And then they could go back to just doing the same bullshit that they've always done and really not care. Again, it just comes down to optics and PR, because it's when the chips are down, after all the marketing's done, after all those nice commercials go out with all the inclusion, they don't do jack shit about it. Anything of substance, they don't do. And it's right here. They got a guy giving out a talking point about what they're doing. And then you have the people involved who are saying, no, they're not. They're not doing anything. It's just frustrating.
Gary Bettman comes off looking even worse as the news continues to come out and as people continue to talk. He looks worse. Bill Daly looks worse. The NHL looks worse. The Blackhawks look worse. The good thing is, though, there are some, there's at least one positive here, right? There was a couple other things I kind of had in our other updates involving the story. Katie Strang as well mentioned this on Twitter last night. Someone came forward with critical new information on a different Chicago area youth hockey sexual abuse case involving a coach. The thing that tipped the scales for them, Kyle Beach's interview. Just another example of the tangible impact Beach has had on others in the hockey community and beyond. So while it can seem like just negative, there are positives coming out of this. And like I said, it's, in terms of this other update section, Rick Westhead did some digging, of course, further throughout the weekend and had stuff like this to add, which again, it just beats you down. The amount of just negative in regards to this. But of course, as we've discussed, and it's great that it comes to light. But he mentioned Investigators say Brad Aldrich's Blackhawks employees file could not be located. HR execs tell me the 2010 industry standard was computerized records. Deleting would leave a digital trail. Blackhawks refuse to say if they're investigating whether records destroyed purposefully. Westhead also added, I was curious where Brad Aldrich is now. Was not expecting him to be running a business staffed with college interns.
Wait,
he did note.
Not in jail?
No, he's not in jail. He is running his own business with college interns. The caveat being they have to at least be 19 years old. So, nothing potentially damaging about that situation.
He was 20? Wasn't he?
Uh-huh.
There's two justice systems, man. There's
Oh my God.
two separate justice systems. Holy shit. I can't. How? This. Holy crap.
And then Westhead also added that Donald Fair, an NHLPA doctor, failed to warn USA Hockey about Aldrich despite promises made to Kyle Beach. And of course, the NHLPA, as of the time of recording, has had a boardroom conference call that's been going on for over 2 hours now as they continue to decide what's going to happen to the likes of Donald Fair, who is essentially the head of the NHLPA. So more to come with this stuff. Like I said, it's very tough to try and talk about all this because how many positive points was I really able to work in there through just this mountain of incredibly depressing and infuriating news that's come out over the weekend still, where, like I said, man, I was saying over the summer that, and obviously we didn't know how bad this Kyle Beach story was over the summer. Like, we had some info. We didn't have this much, obviously. And then there was the Logan Mailloux stuff and so much more where I'm like, man, they are making it really tough to be a hockey fan. I didn't watch much hockey over the weekend because it's like, man, it's so tough to think about hockey in a positive light. And then the story after story comes out and I'm just like, I just want to think about something else other than the sport for a little bit. It's incredibly tough to do when, so much of my online presence is surrounded around hockey, but it takes an effort, but I think it's worth the effort to try and view this negative stuff coming out as more of a positive because hopefully, please, God, let this lead to change.
Yeah, I'm actually very curious whether or not Brad Aldrich actually has to register under Megan's Law as a sex offender. Because here's the argument. Legally, you can't keep 19-year-olds away from someone even if they're a sex offender because they're legally adults. I'm sure there's something legality that allows him to work with, in a business staffed with college interns or whatever. I'm sure people can make the argument, if they're majority female or something like that and he targeted, boys, maybe he'll be safer. Here's the thing about sexual assault that I think a lot of people who are weird and naysayers about it need to understand. It is not about sex. It's about power. And it's about control over other people. But mostly it's about power, and that's essentially what this guy is. How is he continuing to get in these positions of power to exert that sort of power dynamic over others to feed his fucked up desire for more power? And so in that way.
I will say I looked it up. Like, he is still listed on the Michigan sex offender registry.
Good.
So yeah, I would imagine he will be there for, I would hope, the rest of his life. But yeah, no, it's just, man, there's a lot to it. We will make the hard right, which is very difficult to do. But in terms of talking about actual hockey and stuff that happened over the weekend, we will get to that. Although, Sin, there is some breaking news that I don't know if you've seen that's popped up on Twitter. The New York Rangers have announced a contract extension for Norris winning defenseman Adam Fox.
Here we go.
It is a 7-year deal worth $9.5 million, which is a steal and a goddamn half if he can continue playing at the pace that he's played at so far in his career.
Yeah, he's phenomenal. He is absolutely phenomenal. And
he's 23 years old.
God damn, so it kicks in. Yeah, I'll take him up till he's 31, 32 max?
Yeah, I think 30, 31, depending on when his birthday is.
Yeah, he is. Rangers are going to be good for the next little bit of time. Good for him. And Honestly, yeah, that's insane. He could have pushed for more. Like, he's just coming off a Norris win. You're playing in New York where the state tax is going to be a bit higher, but he's home, and
we talked
good
about
for
that
him.
on the show, right? Like
Yeah.
it's where he wanted to be. Like he wasn't going to commit to Calgary. He wasn't going to commit to Carolina. Everyone kind of knew, like, yeah, this is where he wants to be. He wants to be.
I'm curious that it's
a
only
New York
7
Ranger.
years.
Instead of the full 8.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that. I thought that too. I'm trying to go to Cap Friendly here and look at the comparables because obviously Cale Makar
He's making under 9, right? Just under?
recently signed his extension as well, and yeah, I think he was at 9.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken. Give me a second here to look this up on Cap Friendly. But yeah, I mean the bottom line is it's an unbelievable deal.
Yeah.
And this is, again, a bona fide number 1 defenseman.
And it might be smart him taking that 7-year simply because he could probably still argue for an 8-year by the time he's 30, 31. Simply because teams will probably give it to you.
So
I mean,
there are 6 defensemen making $9 million as a cap hit right now. And again, this will go up because Seth Jones isn't on this list. But oh my God, Adam Fox is getting paid the same amount as Seth Jones starting next year.
Lol.
Oh my God! Like I was going to
For
mention
the same amount of time, aren't they? Yeah, because it was 8 years
Yeah,
for
I
Jones.
think so.
Or
Like,
no, wait.
oh my
Does
God!
no,
dude.
the 9 doesn't kick in for Jones till next year, does it?
Yeah.
Oh,
So, like, PK Subban is on the last year of a $9 million deal that obviously didn't age gracefully.
Yeah.
Cale Makar was signed for $9 million. Dougie Hamilton, of course, also fetching $9 million, as is Roman Josi, who's, of course, 31. And obviously you have Carlson and Doughty as the top 2 highest paid defenders right now. But, yeah, Cale Makar got 9 by 6. That, of course, just started. Hamilton got 9 by 7. Yeah, Adam Fox is getting paid the same amount as Seth Jones starting next year.
yeah. I don't know why I thought Makar got the full 8. Is it only 6? Yeah, okay.
My God.
Yeah, I mean that's tremendous for New York. Kind of helps to
Absolutely.
offset some of the other interesting deals that they have signed or had signed. Again, I still don't like the Goodrow deal. I love Goodrow. It's just that's going to age so poorly.
Yeah, so I'm trying to get a look here on Cap Friendly in regards to the Rangers' entire situation.
Yeah.
Obviously, too, it's not completely updated, but we have Mika Zibanejad's deal kicking in next year, 8.5 for 8 years. Kreider is on 6.5 for 5 years after this, and we'll be talking about Chris Kreider because he's been phenomenal so far this season. And obviously, Panarin's at 11.6. I'm intrigued. But that's big business done. And I mean, they're paying Trouba $8 million a year. They're paying Fox $9.5. It kind of evens out. Shesterkin's already locked up.
Yeah.
The Rangers, man. I mean, despite some of the interesting moves that they made in the aftermath of everything that happened with Tom Wilson last year, that is a team that is set up very, very, very well.
Yeah, they really are. I mean, they're in good shape. They got the main guys locked up. They got, the sandpit. They got pretty much everything that you want to see. And now they're just going to have to sort of get it done. But I mean, they have a goaltender who keeps pucks out. Kreider is, having a bit of a resurgence, which is massive for them. You cannot have a $6.5 million anchor in your lineup. So good for them. I hope it lasts beyond, just a couple years. I still think they're a year or two away from being a serious contender. But with this being locked in, they're scary. They're officially scary now.
So with that, we'll get back on track here. Let's flash back to Friday night and some of the things that happened around the league at that point. The Ottawa Senators beat the Dallas Stars 4-1. Most notable about that, shout out to Josh Norris, former Sharks prospect, of course.
Yeah.
He scored his 4th and 5th goal of the season at that point in time. That was, correct me if I'm wrong, that was the Erik Karlsson trade, was it not?
That was one of the pieces. And again,
God, let's say
it's the optics of that. It only looks bad now, especially considering what the first turned into. Honestly, if it was like a late first, Josh Norris, we got Balsers back, by the way. He was doing okay. But yeah, it wouldn't look as bad. But it's that Stützle trade that really makes it look bad, and then some of Erik Karlsson's lackluster performance. But he's been really
Better.
solid
Yes,
to
he
start of
has.
this year. But he's in COVID protocol right now, so
As is half the team.
Yeah.
6 points in 7 games for Karlsson. By the way, just to torture Sid, that Karlsson trade, for those who forget, was Erik Karlsson and forward Francis Perron to San Jose for Dylan DeMello, Chris Tierney, Rudolph Balcers, who ended up back in San Jose, Josh Norris, a second-round pick that became Jamison Reese, and a first-round pick in 2020 that became Tim Stützle. So,
And it would be okay if it wasn't the goddamn Tim Stützle. Oh, I can't. I'm actually. Well, I mean, why? I still can't believe they didn't lottery pick. They just like lottery protected. They're just like
there were
it'll be
2 other
fine.
conditional picks that were not ultimately met, so it could have been even worse.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
The Florida Panthers, obviously, again, this is Friday, so we know the records change, but they moved to 8-0. They beat Detroit 3-2 in overtime on Friday night. Barkov scored his 3rd and 4th goals of the year. But this game was really highlighted. I'll mention, too, the Cats hit the 8-0 record to start a season for the first time in club history, but this game stands out for one highlight in particular. I don't know if you saw it, Sin. The Wings blocked about 1,000 shots in a 30-second span, including Adam Ernie and Robbie Fabry just laying it all out on the line. This is one of those moments that if it was in the playoffs, it would be played until the end of time, at least amongst Red Wings games and kind of hype packages. It was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, as a guy who loves him some goddamn good defense, that's great to see. I mean, that's everyone. Again, you hope everyone's okay. Those are some brutal hits to take in some areas. They were hobbling around, but you love to see that. At least I do. And again, I think defense needs to get great defensive plays needs to get a lot more love. It would probably help prevent people from overvaluing defensemen too and paying them $9.5 million when their replacement level or near that. All right, I'll say fourth guy at best. There we go. How about that?
There you go. my favorite part about the response to the shot blocking clip was somebody saying John Tortorella's take. Now, obviously, just not actually his take, but John Tortorella's take upon seeing this clip. Frame it and hang it in the loop.
Yeah.
Like perfect John Tortorella hockey. Goddamn. I'm just saying, like, they have a coach that most Red Wings fans aren't confident will be the guy. I'm starting the rumor right now. John Tortorella to Detroit after seeing that clip happen. Yeah. It's going to happen.
I mean, you're not going to be able to keep him out. He's going to be knocking on your door being like, let me teach this kid.
Stevie, let me in.
He's like, it's going to be great here. There's also no Brooksy.
God.
Okay?
God damn it. The New York Rangers smashed the Columbus Blue Jackets 4-0 on Friday. Lafreniere, 3rd goal of the year. I talked about Chris Kreider. He scored his 5th and 6th of the year in that game. This one highlighted by how can you not love Elvis Merzlikins?
He's so good.
Again, calling the team back with like 15 seconds to go in the game to make sure that Shesterkin gets the shutout. Elvis Merzlikins, man. I mean, you talk about players with
Great guy.
This unbelievable amount of good faith and someone who, I mean, you know he has obviously a lot of emotions heading into this season.
Yeah.
But just the fact that even as one of the most competitive people on the planet, as a professional athlete, he can just say like, hey, this is bigger than, oh, well, we didn't get shut out. And to allow a moment like that to happen, just, God damn it, what a guy.
Yeah, and I hate it, but I saw a lot of negative comments on that too. It's like, you don't give up ever. I'm like, dude, like, some things are, again, like you said, some things are more important than just spoiling a shutout and this mentality that you have to play till the final buzzer all the time. In most situations, yes, but if you're down 4-0, what's the point? To say that you did it to make some boomers on the internet happy? Like, dude, like, there's some people out there who are gonna find a negative about everything, and in this case, I like to see that. Give me sportsmanship over this weird compete and hate each other from buzzer to buzzer constantly, you know?
Yeah.
It sets a better example.
God, yeah. Now, I will say cap friendly, they were able to put up the contract comparables to Adam Fox, just to go back to that really quickly. Again, Fox at 9.5. The closest comparable is the deal that Charlie McAvoy got, where of course McAvoy ended up signing for 8 instead of 7, and then of course you have like the Makar deal and the Zach Werenski deals that are the closest in terms of the AAV. I mean, it's interesting, right? Fox, McAvoy, Makar, Werenski. The debate over those 4 and how they're ranked from 1 to 4, and obviously they're different styles of players, but it's interesting now, too, that we're really starting to see the, obviously, like the Doughty and Carlson deals were there, but it's interesting to see how the money is starting to flip a little bit towards the defensive side of things.
Yeah, definitely interesting. Hard to rank those three because they all do different stuff. Like Makar, I would say, in the case of Fox Makar, I'd say Fox maybe a little bit better than Makar. I still think Makar's got more to show, but then again, McAvoy is such a different player and drives the play still, but maybe doesn't put up the same amount of points, but is vastly better than both of them on the defensive end of things. So,
right, like I think people view McAvoy and Werenski as the more defensive of the group, right or wrong.
I kind of struggle to see why Werenski should be in the same category as those 3. I don't see him as those. I see him as at least a tier below those 3 skill wise and what he brings to the table. I don't know. Maybe I don't watch enough Werenski, but
yeah, he's one of those guys too where, hey, at least they. And then again, I'm looking at some numbers here for Werenski, and he's definitely more of an offensive defenseman as well. Although his defense is getting a little bit better, but yeah, no, it's just such a good contract.
Yeah. It is.
God damn it. It's so good. The Washington Capitals kicked the crap out of the Coyotes 2-0. 2-0, maybe not the most egregious scoreline in the world. Ovi got his 9th goal of the year. We'll talk a little bit more about him soon. The Hurricanes on Friday moved to 7-0. They beat the Blackhawks 6-3. DeBrincat got his 4th goal for the Hawks, but it was really more about the Hurricanes. Aho's 5th. Svechnikov has 7 goals as of Friday, which is ridiculous. I don't think people are talking about him enough. And I believe that was where the clip originated from, with Antti Ranta talking about getting his first win since his father's passing as well. So that was a lot of things are looking good in Carolina, and we'll talk more about that in a minute.
Yeah.
And then the final game on Friday, you had the Vegas Golden Knights beating the Anaheim Ducks 5-4 in a shootout. The Ducks have played 9 games, at least as of Friday, and have lost 3 in overtime or a shootout to, again, prove that they're a tough team to beat. I'd say primarily due to someone like Troy Terry getting his 4th goal of the year. Although for the Golden Knights, Chandler Stevenson also has 4. Number 1 center, Chandler Stevenson, baby.
God, that throws me. He's going to have a William Karlsson season, and it's going to piss me the fuck off.
We're going to talk about William Karlsson
because much shit on Chandler Stevenson when we were doing our previews. I'm like, you got Chandler Stevenson as your 1C, and Chandler Stevenson is doing good. But congrats to the Golden Knights. They always seem to be able to elevate someone.
Well, don't worry. We both have our moments from those preview shows about controversial takes.
If it keeps them from getting Eichel, fine. Chandler Stevenson's your 1C. You don't need Eichel, please.
So I wasn't going to bring up Eichel on the show. The rumors are still persisting that he's going to end up being in Vegas. It has not happened yet, which just, again, it's not even worth discussing.
I bet it's going to be a team that no one even fucking thought of. I hope so, at least, because everyone's talking about Anaheim and Vegas. I'm like, just please no.
And Calgary
keep them
as
out
well,
of,
like that.
Oh
Flames fans are trying to will that into existence.
Sutter, I don't think him and Sutter will get along. Even though Sutter seems to be letting them kind of fly up the ice every now and then and produce some offense. So hey, maybe he's at the age where he's just not caring as much. He still hates the media though, so same old Sutter.
There you go. With the Golden Knights as well, by the way, current injured list.
Yeah.
Mark Stone, Max Pacioretty, Alex Tuck, now William Karlsson with a broken foot, Nolan Patrick, Matthias Janmark, Zach Whitecloud.
Yeah, it's a lot, and they're still finding
That
ways.
Is a lot. Yet they're still at 500, at least they were as of Friday. I don't remember if they had another goal on Saturday or Sunday, so that's a lot to deal with.
Yeah.
It's the best way to put it. We'll move to Saturday. Some other interesting talking points there as well. Nashville beat the New York Islanders in the shootouts. Oliver Wahlstrom scored his 4th of the year on a freaking wicked 1T Wahlstrom has an incredible shot, man, and I did kind of see a tweet that sums it up best. Like, if the rest of his game can catch up to his shot, he's going to be a very, very good player for the Islanders moving forward. And we mentioned him earlier, but again, Tanner Jeannot also had 2 goals in that game for Nashville. So someone else who doesn't have the name value, but is technically a rookie and is doing quite well. The LA Kings won their second game of the year, beating the Habs 5-2. I just wanted to mention it because it makes me laugh. And Artur Kaliev scored his first career goal. So as the Habs lose their Calder favorite, who knows? Maybe the Kings get someone another Calder mix.
Damn, them missing Doughty is going to hurt. I really kind of thought they might be starting to make a push with some of the young guys, but yeah, no, them missing Doughty's going to hurt. I'm wondering what, like, Byfield doesn't play. I have not caught a Kings game at all. He's not. Is Byfield even on the roster? I don't think he is.
I believe he's hurt.
Oh, okay,
I think he got hurt in the preseason and is still out.
That's rough
and
for them.
has yet to play a game, which has been fairly disappointing. Yeah, he is currently on the season-opening IR. He and Akil Thomas.
Yeah, he's going to be really good.
I hope.
At least
so.
I hope so. Unless these injuries start to, that would be heartbreaking as hell if the injuries slow him down.
Yeah. I mean, God, the comparisons are kind of there to Nolan Patrick in terms of size and stature and having injury trouble before he even really gets going.
Yeah, and yeah, you just mentioned Nolan Patrick injured again in Vegas. I kind of figured it was going to happen for Vegas. I'm like, yeah, you're taking on this guy. You need help at the center role, but you got to watch the injuries. And yeah, there it is.
It sucks to see someone so snake bitten.
Yeah.
The San Jose Sharks beat the Winnipeg Jets 2-1 in overtime on Saturday. Shout out to Kyle Connor, who has 7 goals on the year, but Timo Meier scored his 5th. Sin, any takes on that particular game that you can recall?
I didn't watch it live. I watched the highlights after, but then I went back and I did have and I'm able to sometimes record games completely legitimately. So I watched it. I watched it back, and this was. All I want to say about this, it was absolutely a gutsy win for the Sharks, who, I'll say this, they had 4 defensemen who were not regularly playing for the Sharks. Hatakka played a bit in preseason. He's been their 7th defenseman. I really like him, but I mean, yeah, they had Carlson, Shimmick, Vlasic, and Middleton were all in COVID protocol. They had several centers. I think the count was two players made their NHL debuts. There were several others with like 20 or less games experience, and like 7 guys or something like that who made their NHL debuts in this season, like their first appearances in the NHL. And the fact that they still pulled out a win and played really good defensively against the Winnipeg Jets team that were kind of on a bit of a hotter streak towards the end. You know, I think they won like 4 straight or something like that before coming into them. That's a win that's going to be kind of sort of remembered, and at least for a Sharks fan, because how long have we been like, oh, our depth sucks. Our depth absolutely sucks. We got no farm system. And all of a sudden you have this game where you have to use that depth. You have to use that farm system. And they're able to clutch out a defensive style win against a very, very good Winnipeg Jets roster.
I equated the San Jose Sharks bottom 6 to the New England Patriots and the Pats' ability to just be like, who the fuck's this guy? It doesn't matter. You're running back this week.
It's working. It's the first. I mean, they've had to do that for the past 3 years. But here's the thing: it's actually working now, which is great because they've been able to sort of restock some of the prospects. And you know, with the turnover, when Doug Jr. has become the head of scouting and like the new guy who's the primary drafting guy, we're really starting to get some good prospects in all different rounds too. It's really, really nice to see. And yeah, good to see Timo Meier hitting the scoring sheet once again and earning that $6 million, because I was a bit worried after last year.
Fair enough. He's still looking pretty damn good.
Oh, yeah.
The Boston Bruins on Saturday handed the Florida Panthers their first loss of the season, 3-2 in a shootout. Shout out to Anthony Duclair on the Cats, who has 6 goals already, which is nuts. Barkov scored his 5th as well. It was Charlie Coyle scoring his 3rd, and Charlie McAvoy his 1st in the 3rd period to tie it. And then Coyle scored the only shootout goal to win it. I was very happy with Linus Allmark because as most Bruins fans know, track record in shootouts over the past almost 15 years, just about now, of shootouts existing, hasn't always been great. But it was, I mean, you mentioned a gutsy win for the Sharks, a very gutsy win for the Bruins, and I mean they've had to work through some things. The top line hasn't exactly been firing on all cylinders to begin the season, but it's one of those things where, as a Bruins fan, it's interesting to see what fan bases have the confidence in their team. Like, oh, the Bruins are 4-3. I'm not too worried. The Leafs are 4-4-1, and the city's burning. Like, it's just really interesting to see who kind of has the confidence, or maybe like the track records there to have the comfort to not have to hit the panic button so early into the season. And I mean, I'm still confident that the Bruins will definitely be a playoff team, but my God, if they have to play the Panthers in the playoffs, that would be one of the more stressful series. Man, I think
missing Krejci, dude. Like, he is so, now you're seeing just how severely underrated that guy has been in the league, and maybe even in Bruins fandom at times. Like, he's so good, and he's never really had a huge amount of help either. He's just, anyway, sorry to sort of bring up that story issue, but I love the guy. He's so good.
That was my concern at the start of the year, is just, man, if Coyle turns it around, but turns it around as the third center, as the 3C, and you have Bergeron, Krejci, and a playing well Charlie Coyle, that's very, very tough to beat. And, as of the early stages of the season, Coyle's been good, but it does put that stress on somebody else to step up. And, Cap Friendly right now has the third line center as Eric Halla, who has 1 point in 7 games. Yeah, well, at least he's got almost $2.4 million.
He's got a point. I don't think Bonino has one yet. I'm a little sad about that. I was really excited about that signing.
But, yeah, I mean, again, for the Bruins, I'm confident. Like, Bergeron only has 3 points in 7 games. Craig Smith was really good for the Bruins last year. He actually doesn't have a point in 4 games so far. So there have been some slow starters. But, yeah, I mean, they're definitely still living in a post-David Krejci world, which is a world I am not so happy to be living in.
Yeah.
The Toronto Maple Leafs beat the Detroit Red Wings 5-4. Shout out to Joe Veleno getting his first goal of the season. I believe also now involved in the rookie race.
NHL 17 legend Joe Veleno.
Shout out to Vladislav Nemesnikov. 4 goals on the year already? As someone who it's just like, man, that guy. I remember NHL 16, Nemesnikov, that was the guy. And now everyone's like, oh, okay. And then you find out, like, oh, he's actually not doing that bad for Detroit. It's decent. He has more goals than Michael Bunting. Bunting has 3 on the year. And shout out to Mitch Marner, who finally scored his first of the year. It was the game winner, worth every penny.
Yeah,
Mitch Marner.
First game winner, first goal, 2 1s, 11 Illuminati confirmed. Leafs fans are going ham on Twitter. But yeah, good for the Leafs to get back to 500. Congrats, you beat the Wings in overtime.
Oh, boy. A Wings team without Tyler Bertuzzi as well, if I'm not mistaken. I think that game was in Canada.
Last year would have been like, yeah, whatever. But this year, he's actually...
It actually was in Canada, because I remember we talked about the tweet at the start. The best tweet of the weekend, and I'm paraphrasing, but it was along the lines of like, man, Tyler Bertuzzi looks just lost out there. No shots of any kind. It just, God, man. As down as I was on hockey this weekend, there was some greatness on Twitter that made me feel a little bit better.
I saw some in before the season started that involved Zach Ronaldo and Tyler Bertuzzi. Someone said, wow, Tyler Bertuzzi and Zach Ronaldo don't want to get the vaccine. This is the first time either one of them has passed on getting a cheap shot.
Slow claps. Yes. The slow claps.
I was like, that's fucking brilliant. Like that. You gotta love the cleverness sometimes.
This next game I wanted to mention, because it goes along the lines of what you were saying about EA NHL earlier. The Devils beat the Penguins 4-2. Jesper Bratt got his first goal. Danton Heinen has 4 goals for the Penguins because, of course, it was Sidney Crosby's first game of the year, and the Penguins lost. The Pittsburgh Penguins are every user team in NHL franchise mode who get worse with the better players they have.
Oh, yeah.
They absolutely shit on the Leafs a week or so ago. You get Crosby back, you lose to the Devils. Not as if the Devils are a garbage team, but they are every team a player's ever had in NHL franchise mode.
Yeah, I mean,
it's hilarious.
For those of you not watching on YouTube, I'm nodding furiously because I say it every time I make a trade at the deadline. But all right, guys, we just improved the team. We're gonna sim worse. Get ready. And 9 times out of 10, sometimes you'll sell at the deadline, sell off all your players. All of a sudden, your team starts pushing for the play. But yeah,
happened to me last night. It's the best. Yeah. The St. Louis Blues beat the Chicago Blackhawks 1-0. Jordan Binnington with the shutout. Torrey Krug's first of the year to win it. The Blues are 6-1, still looking pretty damn good. We'll see. As you mentioned, we'll see when that kind of dies down a bit because they beat Chicago. Marc-Andre Fleury has lost his first 5 games as a member of the Blackhawks. The last time Fleury had 5 consecutive regulation losses was 9 years ago in the 2011-12 season. Actually, 10 years ago, then, technically.
Yeah.
God
Poor Marc-Andre Fleury. He doesn't deserve that.
He really, it's sad.
Unceremoniously dumped by Vegas, ends up in Chicago, decides to probably move his family out there, even though they were in love with Vegas, and just the way that was handled still makes me angry. But yeah, and then just to be in this situation, on ice stuff aside, combined with the off ice stuff. Oh man, poor guy. Like for such an elite goalie, he's been treated like absolute dog shit, and I kind of don't get it. Like everywhere he's kind of gone, like the Penguins not protecting him again, sort of a business decision still, but it's just kind of weird. Like just hung out to dry when they went on the cup runs. Like they just, again, maybe you can't argue with them going with Murray in some of those situations. It's still very weird the way he's sort of been, I don't know,
just completely disrespected.
Yes, yeah, I think that disrespect.
So many aspects.
It's crazy, and he's like such a nice guy. He seems like such a good dude. It's like, why?
The nicest guy that nobody wants around, or at least Vegas doesn't want around, apparently. Yeah. Colorado beat Minnesota 4-1. Ryan Hartman has 4 goals. When the hell did that happen? Landeskog scored his 3rd and 4th. Nazem Kadri his 3rd. Shout out to Kadri after I think it was the Blues. Was it the Blues game on Thursday where Jordan Binnington swung a stick at Nazem Kadri's head and Kadri got in trouble for yelling at him?
Yeah.
Because
that's so bizarre.
God. So we didn't get to speak about that incident. Number one, Nazem Kadri getting, punished in any way for shit talking is hilarious. It's sad, but hilarious. Jordan Binnington, man, I don't care what anybody says about the idea of, he was never going to hit him when he swung his stick at him. It's just the idea of faking like you're going to swing your stick at somebody's head to get in their heads. It's gamesmanship. Like, that's just bullshit.
The guy just throws...
Call me a salty Bruins fan because he beat the Bruins in 2019. It's just Bush League garbage, and I can't stand it.
It is. It's not even compete level. It's temper tantrums. Like the guy throws. You can't really say it as anything else. The guy throws temper tantrums. Like a couple years ago when he was walking off the ice, pretended to punch Erik Karlsson in the face, and then pretended like he was going to square up with Dubnyk. But the second Dubnyk took a step out of his crease, he skated right over to the to the bench or in whatever area. The Sharks don't have room on the visiting bench, actually, so they have to sit him in near the tunnel, which is hilarious. But yeah, it's just like, what are you doing? It's just this weird posturing, and he's clearly losing his temper constantly. But yeah, I think he got a 10-minute for that.
I think so, yeah.
Which cool, but
which again, that just means somebody else serves it, though.
Yeah, exactly.
Because he didn't get ejected from the game. So what's the punishment?
And by the way, I didn't get those penalty minutes in fantasy either. I'm pissed about that. Let goalies get points in penalty minutes. The hell, Yahoo!
Our fourth liner has to take a seat. Oh no! What a punishment! And 2 other games that happened on Saturday. The Oilers beat the Canucks 2-1 to move to 6-1 on the season. Draisaitl scored his 5th of the year. Warren Fogle finally got his 2nd, which a lot of pressure on him because Ethan Bear has been incredible to start the season in Carolina. My highlight of this, though, you love to mention him on the show, that's Peter Forsberg. McDavid had a Forsberg-like reverse hit on Luke Schenn that was just gorgeous.
He's so sick. Oh, McDavid is just so sick, man. Like, I'm not going to stop with the Jordan comparables because I can't help it, but he just continues to add these other elements to his game. If he's something's, a perceived weakness, or not even perceived weakness, because he's hailed as this, divine figure, which, I mean, well deserved, but he sees something in his game that he wants to improve. Oh, I want to improve my one-timers. Like, he's always kind of been a big body, able to shove up people up, and now he's reverse hitting people. Like, oh my gosh. We are witnessing greatness, and I try to make a point to watch the Oilers games just because I know when I look back as I'm older, I don't want to miss out on what this dude does on the ice, because it's honestly the potential to be the literal greatest player who's ever lived. Still very early in his career, but with the point paces he's on, I mean, he could at least get close to certain Gretzky records, playing in an era where it's much higher skill level, where the goalies aren't smoking cigarettes in the locker room in intermission and chugging beers. Like, holy crap.
That's why the debate will be there, right? Yeah. Is people will say, like, okay, is it more impressive that McDavid is so dominant in his era compared to the standard of play in Gretzky's era? That debate it's already there. Yeah.
It'll always be there.
And Calgary moved to 6-1-1 after beating Philadelphia 4-0. The core really contributed. Sean Monahan scored his first of the year, Tkachuk his third, Backlund and Goodrow their second. But the story is really Jake Markstrom, and we're going to kick this can down the road because we're going to talk about some of the top goalies through the opening month of October. But Markstrom has been out freaking standing to begin this season. It's insane.
Yeah, I mean, we're kind of seeing what they paid for kind of finally again for the Flames. And that was one of our big question marks too. And we were doing the Pacific Division sort of preview here. Can Markstrom sort of play to the level that he did in Vancouver that got him that contract, or else for the Flames, they might be in trouble. But that game especially, I mean, he looked good. Flames 6-1-1 now. I mean, yeah, some things are happening for some teams that weren't happening before, and it's really starting to come together. So good for him, and I guess good for Calgary.
And then the games on Sunday, the Carolina Hurricanes moved to 8-0 after beating the Coyotes 2-1, who are now 8-1. The price is going to be right for them, I'm sure.
Deke is out there saying, "Don't make me tap the sign."
We mentioned Carl Vejmelka's incredible performance in that game. Martin Necas and Brett Pesce each got their first of the year finally. So, yeah, Martin Necas was off to a slow start offensively in terms of goals for the Canes, and they're still 8-0. And we'll talk about Freddie Anderson as well. But the Canes, 8-0 for the first time in franchise history as well. Just, it's crazy how good they are. I mean, for as many critiques and criticisms as we had, it's working.
Yeah, and one thing that's ironic to me is a team that's doing so good, and they're going to be another playoff team. They've been a playoff team. We kind of touched on this a little bit, how with some of their marketing schemes, how they're looking for. They still don't have a rival. It's kind of nuts. They're now such a competitive team. It's people should be gunning for them, and it still doesn't feel like they have an actual hockey rival. The closest thing to a rivalry they have is from the front office between them and the Habs. I don't know. Is this the year where the Canes finally get an established rival? Okay, maybe they face the Caps again. Maybe they face the Owls again, and then a rivalry sort of gets established. But I don't think I've ever seen a team that's this good and not think, okay, here comes a rivalry matchup. I want to watch this. I don't know who the hell to tune into if I want to watch the Canes. What match? It's kind of nuts. But I mean, they're doing phenomenally. It's kind of ridiculous. They're pretty stacked, and very low key stacked too. I don't think people realize it.
Yeah. The Anaheim Ducks beat the Montreal Canadiens 4-2 on Sunday. The Habs are now 2-8. Shout out to Mike Hoffman though, who has 4 goals on the year.
Sharks legend.
Jake Evans scored his first. Sharks legend for sure. It's so easy to forget about that. It really is. Shout on the Ducks, though. Henrique has 4 goals. Terry has 5. Highlight of this game, talking about sneaky dirty, it was Cedric Paquette hitting Trevor Zegras. Paquette has been suspended 2 games for boarding, and rightfully so. Yeah, Paquette does kind of have that. I had to add that in after I'd sent you what I thought was our finalized version of the sheet, and then LOL, breaking news throughout the show as well. But yeah, no, a suspension-worthy hit for sure for Paquette because, I mean, yeah.
It was good to see Zegers come back at the start of the next period, though, so that's good. No real lasting, that we know of, any damage to him.
Thankfully.
Yeah.
Again, for one of the top rookies as well that we already kind of talked about. The LA Kings beat the Buffalo Sabres 3-2. Sabres still have a 5-2-1 record. And again, like getting contributions from guys like Asplund has 4 on the year, Olofsson has 5. And then you look at the Kings, like Iafallo has 4. Anze Kopitar has 7 goals on the year in 8 games.
Yeah.
Or 9 games now, I believe. Yeah, 9 games. 7 goals in 9 games for Kopitar. I will continue to gush about Anze Kopitar for the entirety of this season. Thank you very much.
I mean, why the hell not, man? I had him for my Selkie. Man might just make a run at the Maurice Richard.
I mean, here's hoping. Yeah. Who doesn't love Anze Kopitar? The Blue Jackets beat the Devils 4-3 in a shootout. Bjorkstrand has 4 on the year. Laine scored his 3rd on a wicked 1T. I love mentioning every game here because you find out, like, Boone Jenner has 5 goals. Like, Boone Jenner has more goals than Patrick Laine and Oliver Bjorkstrand so far this year. Don't know what's up with that. And then for the Devils, like, Andreas Janssen has 4 goals, which is more than Patrick Laine. Dawson Mercer has as many goals as Patrick Laine. There's just so many weird things going on around the league, and it's so interesting to look at these because obviously you can't pay attention to every single team in every single game unless you're the hockey guy, in which case that's about the best somebody could possibly do is to try and replicate that. And then the final game, the Rangers beat the Kraken 3-1. I mentioned him earlier. Chris Kreider, 7 goals on the year already. Adam Fox scored his 2nd, gets a new contract, and Barclay Goodrow does have 3 goals. Jordan Eberle scored the lone goal, though, for the Kraken on one of the best backhand goals I think I've ever seen.
Yeah, that was Crosby level. Like, that was insane, that backhand.
He generated so much power from essentially nearly the face-off dot.
Yeah.
And was able to tuck it. It's just absolutely crazy. And again, that's why we have the Jordan Eberle jersey hanging up on the wall behind me for those on the YouTube side of things. So, Sin, to close this show, I wanted to talk about some of the leading scores that we've seen so far, right? In terms of like, hey, who might be surprising, who might not be. McDavid's obviously leading forwards in terms of points with 16. Ovi has 15. He had a great start.
Yeah,
great start. Kyle Connor as well with 14 points, and then you got Kopitar, Draisaitl at 13 each, which again, like you look at these guys, like McDavid doing well, not surprising. Ovi doing well, not surprising. But guys like Kyle Connor, who again are unsung. Guys like Anze Kopitar, who are turning the clocks back a little bit. Stamkos has 12 points. Evgeny Kuznetsov has 12 points. And we talked about him before, but a guy where it's like, he's going to get traded. It's dead in Washington. He's been very quiet, but very good, which is the best thing for his career right now and for the Caps. Wasn't sure if you had anything to add there, but hey, fair enough.
No, I mean, it's what else can you say? I mean, they were
pretty much.
Yeah. With all the trade rumors and stuff, it's good to see him sort of getting back into that category and, putting up those points, like you said, sort of silently going about it.
Yeah. Admittedly, I had to take a peek at Twitter as well because I'm like, is there going to be more breaking news?
Yes,
you never know. And then there's a group of guys to round out the top 10. Andrei Svechnikov, Timo Meier, Huberdeau, and Goodrow all on 11 points, which again, Carolina very good. San Jose, not too bad. Florida very good. Calgary very good to start the year. So it's not surprising to see those guys up there. And it brings us to the goal scorers where it's Alex Ovechkin's world, and we live in it. He has 9. And then there's a group of a bunch of guys with 7. Yeah. Kopitar, Kreider, Elias Lindholm, which again shows how good Calgary is. Andrew Mangiapane, who is in that Kyle Connor ranking of like, give this guy more respect. Kyle Connor's there. Connor McDavid, and Andrei Svechnikov. It's a wonderful mix of, we expected you to be here, wow, you're still this good, and holy hell, you're this good?
Yeah.
It's like a great mix of that so far, even through, 10 games or so for some teams. Which brings me to the defenders in terms of points. Number one on the list, I know you have the list in front of you, but Kevin Shattenkirk wins our Jeff Petrie Award for early Norris favorite by leading the way for points. He's this year's Tyson Barrie, apparently. Shattenkirk has 10 points so far this season.
And
below him with 9, Roman Josi, not surprising. Aaron Ekblad, not surprising. Adam Fox, not surprising. Tony DeAngelo also has 9. Which, again, nobody ever denied that Tony DeAngelo was a very good player on ice. Hopefully he continues to
not be a
shut
piece
his
of
mouth and play hockey.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which, I mean, again, some people might be like, well, why does he have to shut his mouth?
It's not about him taking stands on certain issues. It's about how he treats others, how he treats teammates openly, getting into fights with them. And he was an Evander Kane in New York. I will put it that way. And hopefully he can keep up the string of good behavior and actually change like Evander Kane was not able to do no matter where he went.
8 points, Hedman, not surprising. Pionk in Winnipeg, not surprising. Moritz Seider with those 8 points again.
Now, he was the one that everyone was confused about when they took him in the first round, right? Like as early as they did.
Yeah, it was the complete and utter shock. And he's 20, if I'm not mistaken. He might still be 19 years old. He's 20.
Insane.
April 6, 2001 birthday.
I also want to just point out, 3 years ago, Kevin Shattenkirk went to Tampa Bay on a league minimum deal, or something very, very low. Didn't he? And
I think it was league min, yes, after, I think it was
got bought out
by the Rangers. And then, he went to Tampa.
Good for him, man.
On a dirt cheap deal and won the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, and good for him, man. He's really, kind of making that comeback. That's cool to see. Everyone likes kind of an underdog, like a revival story, and Shattenkirk's having that at the beginning of this year. So that's awesome.
Dude, that cup run, he had 13 points in 25 games. He wasn't a pushover. Like, he had 34 points in 70 games in the regular season. Like, he's still I don't know what his defensive metrics look like, but the guy can still put up points, and he's only, I think, 32. Yeah, 32.
Yeah.
It's fair play. And then there's a bunch of guys with like 7 points. Haskin, Doughty, Fowler, Gustav Forsling in Florida, and Seth Jones. But Seth Jones's 7 points is also offset by a minus 10. Which, again, plus minus is not the end-all be-all stat. But if you have a minus 10 by November 1st, there is a problem. Holy hell.
Yeah,
there is a problem.
I'm trying to look it up quickly. I want to, if any of those points are on the power play, because he is a very good play driver on the power play. That's like his actual biggest strength when it comes to the analytics. I'm wondering.
I'm actually not sure. I mean, I'll allow you to look that up.
Yeah.
You get back to us there, because I wanted to also talk about goaltenders, which unfortunately it does kind of lead towards, hey, who's the top goalie in terms of save percentage right now? Granted, it's only through 3 starts, 4 appearances, but that would be San Jose Sharks legend.
Yeah, so 5 of his points are on the power play.
That makes sense.
Anyway, sorry.
James Reimer has a 964 save percentage for the Sharks so far.
You know what's awesome? Having goaltending. Oh, I love having goaltending. Yeah, he's been great in the role that he's gotten less starts than Hill, but every time he's been called upon, he is great. I believe he has a no, that was Aiden Hill getting the shutout. But James Reimer has just been phenomenal. He was in that game where we beat the Winnipeg Jets, and he couldn't stop praising all the guys that came in, who, by the way, all those guys that we mentioned earlier who came in, like the 7 or 8, however many that had to be called in, they all played the night before for the Barracuda. So
yeah, I think we undersold that when we were talking about the Sharks, just how crazy that is that they had to call up essentially half of an AHL team and still beat the Habs.
Yeah, and I really like
the Jets, excuse me.
Then when they brought up Merkley, they also called up his defensive partner from the AHL, which is Megna. and they have apparently been very good. And that's been like kind of Merkley's rock back there, which I feel like every OFD needs that partner who's gonna kind of, lock things down, help keep them honest, give them that confidence and stuff like that. And honestly, Merkley had a pretty good game. So, got almost caught a couple times, but for what he is, and not too bad. I was very excited. But yeah, James Reimer, so sick.
We talked about Jake Markstrom in Calgary. He has a 4-1-1 record with a .957 save percentage and 3 shutouts. He has never had more than 3 shutouts in a single season. He has 3 shutouts in 6 starts.
Half of his games, he's shut the opponent out. That's a silly stat. That's obviously not sustainable, but what a start it's been for Calgary.
And Freddie Anderson as well, by the way. Just I wish Endo was here. God damn it. This is why I had this last on the list, because I'm like, oh, Endo will be here, and then he's not, so he avoids me twisting the knife. Freddie Anderson has a 7-0 record, which is now the record for longest undefeated streak after debuting with a new team. He has a .956 save percentage and is one of the few goaltenders to have a shutout on the year so far as well. Holy hell. What can you even say to Freddie Anderson having that good of a start? Igor Shesterkin, 5-1-1 with a .947. He has a shutout as well. So again, we talked about it. He got that new deal with the Rangers somewhat recently. He's been phenomenal.
Wow.
Sergei Bobrovsky has a 6-0 record with a .944 save percentage.
It came out of nowhere. I mean, for me, I haven't really been paying attention to Florida. I know they're doing good. I was assuming Bobrovsky was either getting carried or Spencer Knight was getting a lot of the starts, but good to see Bobrovsky at least sort of starting to earn that contract that he has. What a year, man! Like this is the year of the comebacks.
There's a meme to be made about like the Bones no Bones days, and to make it's a Bob year, everybody. I don't know if we can make that work into a title, but it's looking good for Sergei Bobrovsky. He's only played 2 games. One of them was a win at the hands of the Bruins, but Martin Jones is 2-0 with a .941 save percentage, so we can both shed tears.
I will say,
Craig Anderson,
I don't care as much. I'm happy for him. I wanted this, but I will also add on to that. Flyers fans, just wait. Do not get excited. Just wait, okay? Please temper your expectations. Martin Jones has a thing where he'll put up this incredible stretch of games, a couple weeks, maybe a month, and then goes back. I hope that's not the case this time. I really do. I wish him the best. His time in San Jose was over. We're in a great goaltending situation now. I'm not going to feel as bad because I'm not the Leafs and we're not struggling, even though we theoretically should be. But yeah, good for Jonesy. I'm happy to see it.
Craig Anderson and Elvis Merzlikins have identical 4-1 records with .939 save percentages.
Isn't
and
Craig
also
Anderson
for the Sabres,
40, man? How is he doing it?
He's 42. I think. It's something crazy like that. I gotta look that up right now.
He's 40,
I'm
41.
pretty sure.
Oh, holy crap.
Okay, he is 40. He's not 42, but Jesus Christ.
Like the Buffalo Sabres are just like, all right, put him on the roster, whatever. He wants to still play, throw him in there. And then, but honestly, Craig Anderson's has kind of made a career out of this, of putting up insanely good numbers out of nowhere. Like I remember I went to a game literally like 10, maybe like probably 15 years ago, a Sharks game, and he had like a 35 save performance as the Sharks won like 2-1 or something like that. Who the hell is this Craig Anderson guy? He was, and now back to, flash forward to now, and he's crushing it over there in Buffalo, where everyone's like, oh, this team's got no chance.
But so was Dustin Tokarski, who has a .936. Anderson has a .939. Tokarski has a .936. It's just,
has he played the Rangers yet?
It's so early, man. But it's incredible to see some of these numbers. Like Matt Murray has a .936. And then shout out to Ilya Sorokin, who has a .931 with those 2 shutouts that he got back-to-back last week. And then the last number that I'll leave you here with, everybody, Mikko Koskinen has a .934 save percentage so far this year. So all is right in Edmonton. Believe in Ken Holland. It'll be okay.
It would have been nice when I picked him up as a throwaway last year in fantasy, put up those kind of numbers. Son of a bitch.
Oh, God. So there is so much going on surrounding the NHL on the ice, off the ice, and we will continue to follow it. But that will do it for us here this time out. We thank you all very, very much for listening. Again, a big shout out to our sponsor as well at Manscaped. Again, code Tougie, 20% off, and free worldwide shipping can be yours. We will be back this Thursday. Hopefully, Endo will be able to rejoin us at that point in time. Sin, tell the people where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter, as I believe we put it in the graphics below. SinFTW Prod on YouTube and on Twitch as a part-time streamer. I'll emphasis on part-time. Don't expect me to find me there every day. But you can usually find me uploading on YouTube every day. SinFTW Productions, Sin for the win. So, yeah, appreciate it.
Of course, you can find Endo pretty much everywhere at Endo Mills, ENDO Mills, and I am basically everywhere at Tougie24. It is not difficult to find me. Check out the roster editing process on twitch.tv/Tougie24. I still got a month's worth of work to go.
I can't wait to download it.
Because Seth Jones is a good defenseman in that game, and that tells you all you need to know. We'll see you later on this week, everybody. Again, thank you very much for listening. And God, let's see how long we can go. Can we go 3 days without the NHL embarrassing itself again? Probably not. But hey, time will tell.